Jason and I started Austin VR Lab as content creators 2 years ago. This month is actually our 2-year anniversary. And we started as a research development lab to create VR content. And we created virtual reality music videos, and we had scripts and productions ready to go, and we realized that 95% of the people that we encountered that we tried to show our work to had no idea what VR was, how to get to VR, that they could do it on their phones or any access to it. So we decided to take a step back, and we were like, before we put out all this great content that we want to put out, we need to develop an audience first. So we call it, we're taking the Netflix approach. We're getting into the distribution of virtual reality and augmented reality, creating the market. That way when the content is ready to be created, we can deliver it to an audience that's ready to receive it. Now, you're probably wondering, well, your Austin VR Lab, where does the AR part come in? Augmented reality and virtual reality are very similar in that they are developed in the same field with the same types of developers, and they are interchangeable. Now, the difference between augmented and virtual reality is a completely simulated world. Your augmented reality is your real world with simulations layered over it. Now, once you add a layer, and then you add another layer, and you add another layer, you eventually end up in virtual reality. So augmented reality could also be defined as how much virtual layers do you have in front of you before you've disappeared from reality. And so that is the correlation between the two, and that's why we're here, and that's why we help people determine, hey, do you really need AR? Do you need VR? We're looking at the technologies we've been developing, and we've been we've been in the Hololens, Google Glass, all different kinds of heads-up displays, which people are now selling as augmented reality and being the buzzword. Heads-up displays are like what you'll see in the new BMWs and new Audis and many different car brands, where you see an augmented display telling you how fast you're going, what lane you're in, your blind spot, everything displayed in your windshield. And that is an augmented reality. It's your reality with another layer on top of it. These headsets in front of you, you've probably heard of the term Google Cardboard. Well, the first thing I did when I got my Google Cardboard was I sat on it. And then I had to wait for another one to come in. And so we decided as a company, we need to make something that's a lot more stable than a piece of cardboard, and something that has adjustable eye focus lenses if you wear glasses. So something you can go into these with your glasses on, but there are adjustable focus lenses on top.
When you open it up, on the inside you're going to have little plastic pieces on these eyelets. Go ahead and pull those off. Take those out.
We tour everything from music festivals to college campuses to our biggest hit, which is retirement communities. A lot of people in retirement communities, they're kind of constricted to their setting, and they're limited either physically or financially. And so we're able to bring them these glasses, and what you'll see later in our virtual reality, and they're able to escape. They have a newfound lease on life. They start moving their hips, and their physical therapists are like, slow down, and they're like, haven't been skiing in years, and they're able to do it in their headsets, and they're able to enjoy life. All the front covers on these are removable. They're all attached with a magnet.
Take this little thing off right here.
And this allows for your pass-through camera and your phone.
What we'll do is we'll select one of these. You're going to have these adjustments, which are forward and back. This is your focus.
And then you pick a filter. And once you pick the filter,
and then this is kind of like binoculars.
So now you're going to pick a filter. I like this one. And this makes everything a cartoon.
So these are forward and back for focus. And then the center here is kind of like binoculars in and out.
What version is this? A 4? A 4S? If you're in Reality Hacker, my favorite filter to use is Inverted Sobel Edge.
It gives them that. So you can make people look like whatever you want them to look like.
Now that we've all kind of seen what augmented reality looks like, what that layer looks like over it, we have a better idea of what we're talking about when we say a heads-up display, something that adds a filter, gives you a different perspective on reality, whether it's through making something a cartoon or infrared. And what's coming is actual information that you're going to use, like weather and updates and news, if you want those filters layered over your reality, and to what extent you want to take it, you'll be able to turn it on and off. Right now, we're able to strap these phones to our faces. Of course, we heard about Google Glass, and we heard about it about 3.5 years ago. And Google Glass is basically a heads-up display that will give you all your Google information, but right in front of your face. So the subway service is suspended, right? And so somebody walking around the city will get information as they're walking around as to what's going on in their reality if they want to augment
Pop-up display,
yeah. Now, that opens the door for all these different apps and all these different services to start putting their reality into yours. And you'll be able to turn them on and off, but it can get a little complicated, right? If you have all your filters turned on all at once, you'll get news alerts, your calendar, your navigation, and so it can be a little bit overwhelming. That's why we talk about virtual reality kind of being at what level of augmented reality you're at. How many layers do you have that are going to be stacked in front of you? And then why these technologies have kind of taken a back seat. And one of the reasons Google Glass took the back seat, and we still haven't seen a real consumer version yet, is they all require this camera. And this camera likes to map things and likes to map people and faces, and that makes people on edge. If you were walking around daily in restaurants and at conferences with the camera strapped to your face, well, not everybody wants to be recorded, and it makes people kind of uneasy. And then you can run into Paul, and Paul owes you $20, and now that's a reminder, right? It maps Paul's face. One thing that's interesting about this is Google actually used this in their commercial for Google Glass. I thought it was a bit of anti-advertising for Paul. Like, Paul's going to feel a little bit more uneasy next time he runs into you and you have your Google glasses on. So signs like these started popping up everywhere, at restaurants, at clubs, at places where people gathered for social events. In fact, they sold more of these signs than they passed out developer headsets for developers to start using. Because people in San Francisco and in Austin, they were really worried about being mapped and being filmed, and it made people uneasy. Well, the last thing Google wanted was to make people feel uneasy blatantly, right? And so the developers found that, well, if these glasses are going to be banned, well, there's a far less likelihood of someone spending $3,000 for a pair of these glasses if they're banned almost everywhere they can go.
Before they even come out.
And then we have mixed reality, something that's going to combine your reality and the virtual world together. And Microsoft developed the Hololens. It's still in a very beta phase. It's still simple, and there's a dimming effect. So it kind of dims the rest of the room and then just puts a computer screen in front of your face. So kind of what the phones are doing as well.
It's still kind of opaque, you can see it and then kind of through it, past it. We actually went and did use the HoloLens a while back. Has anybody else used the HoloLens? Had that experience yet? No? Okay.
It's still in its developer phase. It's still very simple, and there's not a whole lot of content for it. And considering it's a $3,000 headset, there's a lot less likelihood that people are going to be wearing it around. And it's actually a little bulky, but some of the things that it's being planned for is in the industrial environment, when people are needing to repair things or build things, and they need a heads-up display in front of them telling them where to assemble things or how things work, especially in the automotive industry. That's what they're more geared towards. They're not geared towards the everyday wearing around. You won't see someone walking down Congress or walking around an airport with a HoloLens off. It'll be a more corporate enterprise work environment solution. This looks really cool though. It looks like, hey, I could have my living room and a castle come up. And we thought that this is what it looked like. These are all computer renderings. This is what Microsoft hopes that it will look like one day. And this is where kind of augmented reality took another backseat, because when you go put on the HoloLens and you don't see this, what you thought you were going to see, you're undersold on it. You're not going to want to spend more time because you were expecting to see one thing and got something else.
Just a Liberty Square pop up in front of your face like this big.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right.
And then so you have all these layers that you can add to your reality. And the big one was with the NFL, the partnership that they want to make. So you're watching the game with your friends, and all of a sudden your wall opens up and Marshawn Lynch runs through it, and then you can track Russell Wilson's heartbeat as it's fourth down and 2 to go at the Super Bowl. And that's where the developers started to say, well, if people are going to be strapping on these headsets watching the game anyways, but these headsets aren't going to be powerful enough to actually run it in real time, then why not just keep it in virtual reality and keep their entertainment and their homes in virtual reality, especially because that's the best way to power it. And that's what we're going to show you later today in the VR section of our presentation. Is virtual reality is finally there, where if anybody in the 90s remembers, hey, VR is going to be cool one day, it's actually going to be what I think it's going to be, it's finally there. And there's no way I can overhype it. We've been doing it for 2 years. I'm going to tell you it's the most amazing thing you'll ever do, and you'll probably confirm that for me once you get in it.
You got to sell this guy on it, though.
Oh, just put him in it.
Yeah, it's really hard to explain virtual reality. The best way to explain it, it's mental teleportation. Your body's here, and your mind gets to travel somewhere else and be in a whole different reality. And it sells itself. So once you get in it, I'm really excited to see your reactions and see what you think and your opinions. And these headsets also have cameras built onto them, so they can do the augmented portion as well. And they can be powered by these graphics cards. Now, we are quite a few years away from these being standalone headsets. As you'll see, your phones are powerful enough to do what they did today. They're powerful enough to add that filter, to draw everything out as a cartoon. But when you actually want to start loading in apps and games and experiences, when you see our machines over there, you'll see the size of the graphics cards on these things. They're pretty big, and it takes a lot of power to power them. And so to take that graphics card and shrink it down to something that will be comfortable for your face, we have about 5 years in front of us. And by that time, virtual reality will have already surpassed all of our expectations. So augmented reality will kind of take that back seat. So this is what it would look like in augmented reality, your living room. And this is what it looks like now in virtual reality. And you'll see this when you get in. This is the home loading screen for Steam VR. And it looks like you're in a home, like you're in a, most people say this is better than my house and rather spend more time in there than their real houses. And so then we develop in virtual reality. We create all these virtual things. We have all these virtual experiences. And then where augmented reality come back in is when we want to bring these objects back into the real world. So you made a spacesuit, and then you want to see what that spacesuit would look like in the real world. You're able to layer that back out. So when we want to show off our virtual reality creations and experiences, that's when augmented reality will really be useful.
Seen the new iPhone X? Anybody have it? New iPhone X. So the iPhone X actually has 3D rendered objects that you can implement into videos and into photographs and stuff. As you're recording something in the commercials that you're seeing on TV, they're playing basketball and there's a Tyrannosaurus Rex running around the court, right? And so that's just a 3D rendered effect, and that's augmented reality. That's actually able to put something else in the video that isn't actually there.
So why is virtual reality winning and augmented reality taking funding and they're falling off? Well, it's where the developers are going, where the money is, where the audience is. If no one has Google Glass, if no one has Microsoft HoloLens, why would you make an app for it? Why would you create and develop content for something that no one is going to see? So the developers are moving towards virtual reality, the companies are moving towards virtual reality, and therefore augmented reality is losing money. It's not as viable a solution right now for the level of technology that we're at as a society at the consumer level. And so a VR developer skill set is very similar to an AR developer skill set. They're software engineers, they have 3D mapping skills, video and sound production skills, game development, and UI and UX skills. Now these skills are applicable to both virtual reality an augmented reality. But all these developers, once you're in virtual reality, see that future and see that everybody's going to end up there. So why develop augmented reality? Virtual reality has moved so far past it. I was actually in a multiplayer game the other day, and I was playing with some guys, a guy from Denmark. I have friends all over the world, and I spend quite a amount of time in these multiplayer virtual reality settings where it's almost like reality, you'll see. And we have these friends, and I was telling them, I was like, hey, I'm doing a keynote on augmented reality, and I kind of got a chuckle or a laugh from the whole room. They're like, why would anybody want to do augmented reality when you can do the same thing in virtual reality but better? And
yeah, it's just a few years behind where we're at, so it'll come. But yeah, it's one of those. There's more, way more, and then you can go into so many different rooms and so many different areas, Only main thing that is separating us from augmented reality to virtual reality is like your touch, like haptic feedback, tactile.
So yesterday I did one more search. I was like, hey, has anybody released anything augmented reality related that would work on these phones? And I spent a couple hours looking, and there's a few options. None of them can do what the Reality A and the Reality Hacker can do. That's going to be your best example of being able to do augmented reality at the consumer level right now. If you go to that same app store and you type in VR, there are about 10 times as many apps that you can do and experiences. There are apps within apps in VR. It gets very deep. You can ride roller coasters, you can watch people do surgery, you can go skydiving, you can go for hours content-wise. With augmented reality at the consumer level, Reality Hacker and Reality A or Reality Augmented on the iPhone are going to be your best examples of how to do augmented reality for yourself.
Right. In the headsets, yeah. Versus like Snapchat. Snapchat's another one that does the augmented reality. Like we were talking earlier, putting filters on stuff, making people's faces change and so on and so forth. We'll be able to do that here in, I don't know what, the next 2-3 years. They'll probably have it to where you can do it through your headsets as well. Walk around and make everybody look like puppy dogs or whatnot.
So now we'll open up to questions. Anybody has any?
Or we can jump in and answer them as we drop y'all in some virtual reality. Let y'all check it out.
I do have one quick question, and that is when you talk about VR, right? That's where everybody's at. That's where the enthusiasm is because of the realistic feel of it. From a commercial perspective, I'm with a wireless carrier, and they're all talking about 5G and getting the faster speeds and capacity. I'm assuming there's going to be more AR in the future in the next couple of years. And have you guys gotten any leaks from the industry or feeds from the industry to say, hey, we want you to start thinking about the AR side?
So it's actually really interesting with the augmented reality side. A lot of these companies that are getting funded, they're all super top secret on what they're actually developing. And Magic Leap is a company that they wanted to create a augmented reality headset and got $1 billion of funding, but no one's seen the product yet. They just showed, hey, this is what our concept looks like, and looks like some steampunk goggles that I don't think I would even ever wear. I'm curious to see what they look like on the inside, but no one has created a product that is viable, that does what the digital renderings of it says.
It hasn't been open to where we can even find out at this point. And we have looked. We've gone up and knocked on doors of these companies just say hi. This is what we do out here with virtual reality. We would love to be able to help market and push and show, the public and be able to, take it to these types of presentations and stuff that we do and let people see it. And absolutely not yet.
Yeah.
Not yet. Eventually, yes. Here in the next year or so, I think it's going to be opened up a little bit more. But at this time, there's not much out there besides the Hololens and I think, what was the other one? The Hololens and the Google goggles, yeah. Really
I've never seen more disappointed people than at the end of a HoloLens line. Like people stand in line for a couple hours to get into a HoloLens to see what a developer has created. and it's just a pack of Marlboro cigarettes like floating in front of them, and then it disappears.
Well, we did the Discovery one.
Yeah. Oh, and
for
then
the Discovery Channel.
we did a National Geographic
Yeah.
one where it's just like a little hole opens up in the wall and a train comes through, but the rest of the room goes dark, so it's really might as well just been in virtual reality.
Yeah. All right.
Any other questions?
Well, I'm from Seattle, so I do appreciate every time you make a reference to football players, you mention either current or former Seahawks players.
That was for you.
But my question is, on the Google Glass, maybe I don't understand well. If they're trying to layer augmented reality where you're at, why do you need the camera at all? Why don't you just have a good GPS, understand where a person is, what he's looking at? He's looking at this restaurant, he's looking at Subway.
So
For depth perception,
yeah.
the 3D mapping of the room.
That as well as you're walking, the other thing, as he was saying, is so you can map out faces. So you can trigger applications and be walking down the street, and let's say someone else has the same application you want. You want to be able to meet people. Well, instead of being online and going into chat rooms, you're walking down the street, and it's kind of like you're in a chat room. Their information will pop up. You'll be able to read what they have going on, and you'll be able to decide to interact or not. You know, that was another part of the Google Glass that they have, you know, and that was like one of the big points, but then also, again, one of the kind of fear factors, and everybody's like, yeah, I don't want you to know everything about me as I'm walking down the street. But then again, you know, the world's evolving, things are changing, people are wanting to put their information out there, and others aren't. You know, so that is kind of that's the reason for the camera, was so it can actually map and see who's walking up and be able to distinguish what we have going on.
Mohammed, you made a comment earlier. I'm not sure if everybody heard about it, but the segment of your business into going into retirement homes. Can you talk a little bit more about that and your experiences?
Yeah, so of course, we're research and development, and so we were researching and developing who would want to see virtual reality, and we found that the target market, of course, the ages of 12 to about 22, and then we noticed that there was a big drop-off at the age of 25 of people who wanted to get into virtual reality, wanted to spend a lot of time in there, and then at about 50, it shot up again. And we kind of figured, I mean, we're both in the age group that falls off. And so in figuring out, well, people in that age are more concerned with their reality. Starting lives, getting married, having kids, raising families. So escaping to a whole other place is not necessarily a viable option. But for children don't want to get out of it. Once you put you're not supposed to put kids under the age of 13. I've been experimenting with my niece, with my sister's permission, since she was about 3 years old. And they don't want to, they are glued to it. And you'll see when you get in it, it's absolutely intuitive. Anyone from a 3-year-old to an 80-year-old,
So then the retirement.
with very little knowledge or having ever been in a video game will get into it very quickly. It's very intuitive. And so we decided to take it to a retirement community. And our first one, it was a hit. Older ladies were crying. Gentlemen were laughing, bringing up war stories because they were flying with the Blue Angels now and they were remembering their time. People were going back to their old childhood homes. All these things you can actually do with your phones. If you go to our website, you can find a list of experiences that, like I said, we've accumulated that you'll be able to do these things with. Now, the retirement communities, one of the things we found are the people in the communities are restricted to their communities, whether it's physically or financially. And they're kind of just sitting there watching the 24-hour news cycle. And that's their day. And so when you take them this experience and they can all of a sudden go skiing, or they can be flying with the Blue Angels, or go see their child at home, or now, like right now, we are live streaming in 360 degrees. So you can go to this live stream and you can put on the headset and you'll be here in the room with us.
You look around and see everybody in the room as if you were sitting right here in front of us.
Now, this is a 360 camera. It's small. There's almost no footprint. And if grandma can't make it to the wedding, well, if you can put one of these up at your wedding and you can send her a headset and grandma can put on the headset, well, now she can be at the wedding. She can look behind her, she can look in front of her, and people can interact with grandma as well.
Yeah, that's fun. You know, with Google Earth and stuff that they have now, you can actually fly around the world as if you were Superman. You can go visit your old childhood homes. You can go and, like, I went to Italy not too long ago, and I went back while my parents were watching as we projected on the wall, and I can walk around and take them to the different, like, historical markers and stuff I went to, and we can walk around as if they were there with me. Because it does human scale, so you're standing on the street and looking up at buildings, and then it was like, hey, I wonder what it looks like from up there, and then you can fly to the top of the building and look around from out there. So it's a pretty neat experience, which y'all all get to experience.
Yeah, we're about to put all you guys out. And like I said, we can't oversell it.
Yeah. So before
you're gonna love it.
waste too much time, it's 3:16.
All right,
So
are we
let's,
ready to?
Wait, can you tell the story about the lady with dementia?
Oh, yeah. So we went to one of the retirement communities we went to. There was a lady and she had dementia and Alzheimer's, and her nurse was like, "Hey, don't give her too much," and she was like, "Don't listen to her." She took us off to the side, and by the time we left there, she knew how to put the phone into the headset. She knew how to put the headset on by herself, adjust her pupils. She laughed. She cried. She cried literally to where we had to bring her tissues, like, because she was just in such awe of what she was able to do. And when we left, she thanked us, and we left. And a couple days later, called the center up and see how everyone received it. And they said it's amazing. The same lady, she can't remember what she had for breakfast, but she asked about y'all and where the virtual reality guys were and when we were coming back. And so it's really powerful that someone who can't remember what they have for breakfast can remember a virtual reality experience 3 days later and remember that feeling that it brought them. And I'm not a medical doctor by any means, but it is somewhat of a cure. It's somewhat of a mental stimulation that can activate parts of the brain that we didn't know were able to be activated like that. And we have firsthand, we don't have medical science behind it, but we have anecdotal evidence of events that have happened and people who have experienced VR that have had a change in their condition. And
it's pretty profound, just knowing that as someone that doesn't typically remember what's going on throughout the days, to ask 2 and 3, 4 and 5 days later about the same experience. So it's definitely one of the funnest things I've got to do, and the reactions on their faces every time we do it is amazing. Everything from just the goggles to when we actually put them in the VR standalone set up as well. I mean, it brings a smile to, I haven't seen anybody not smile once I get into it. But y'all be the judges. Don't let me tell you about it.
On the medical front too, a little bit about virtual reality. We worked with some doctors at UT, and of course they have a few more studies to go through before they can officially publish. But they found that if patients recovering from surgery spent 20% of their recovery time in a virtual reality experience, that they needed up to 30% less opiates for their pain management. So because it was that separation of mind and body, they were less connected to the physical pain of their body and more in tune with where they were mentally.
Before we go to the VR, a couple things. These are here's the key. Take home with you. Since it sounds like it'll be easier for VR more than AR, make sure you take the screen that goes over the front of it as well.
Missing one of the front covers?
Yeah, if you're missing one of those, I left mine at home, so I throw it in the bag, so that's not mine. Also, you said there's a sort for where we can find out VR programming to.
Yeah, so if you go to austinvrlab.com, it's kind of a source for information as far as where you can go to experience things for these headsets. If you have any questions or if you need a refresher on anything, there's a contact us. Those emails come directly to Jason and I, and we sort through them and we try to answer them as quickly as possible. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out.
Go in your app stores, type in VR, and it'll pull up a list of applications. If you type in 360 videos in YouTube, you'll pull up thousands and thousands of different videos and different adventures. Within is an app that I would recommend, as well as Discovery VR.
Yeah, Discovery Channel's VR app is pretty amazing, and it's all free, which is
it's all free, yeah.
Even better.
And you can stream it if you're hooked to Wi-Fi, or you can download the content. It's totally up to you. Thank you.